place, I would have said I thought 100% certainty it would take place in the Garvin and we'd be having a curtain rising. Instead, here we are for another mid-court discussion. It's probably the last time I'll be able to serve, stand in the mid-court, because my basketball career ended a long time ago. I was almost this height when I was in 6th grade, so I went from center, then as everybody grew and I didn't, to forward, to a guard, I was on the bench in my junior year. In my senior year, I was where you were, watching the games. When I told that story, somebody else said, unfortunately, your mental acuity also stopped when you were. But I didn't necessarily agree with that comment. This has been quite a year, quite a semester in this role. I've been here for many, many years, in the system for many years. And I can't remember one where there's been so many changes and so much uncertainty as this last 6 months. And Dean explained some of that to you. I'll try to explain some of that to you as well in my presentation. So sometimes I feel like the only thing that's solid is the concrete underneath the floor of my office that's not moving in terms of the shifting environment that we're in. It wasn't me. I was hoping that would be another change in the environment. Somebody's asked me before I get started, what's the biggest difference between being executive vice president and acting president? So I thought about it, and I said, when I was executive vice president, I kind of knew where the landmines were, and I knew how to avoid them, and I knew how to disarm some. As acting president, there's twice as many landmines, many of which I didn't know existed, and they're all closer to the surface. But so far, as I promised I'd try not to do in the fall, is not cause problems. And I think I've done a good job of not causing problems, trying to help solve problems. But I attribute that to just a wonderful support I've received from everybody, from the faculty, staff, the board, members of EC, members of the community. It's just been terrific to have such a supportive environment, especially in the trying times that we're in. It just makes a big difference. I don't have to divert my thoughts to, having to deal with, debating people, arguing with people about, criticisms. I get nothing still but praise about this college, and mainly about individuals who are sitting in this very room, from me. So again, I'll be thanking you a number of times, but I just can't, in this role, it's amazing how appreciated everybody is in what you do. And I hear about it all the time. Actually, it's a joy now being out in the public in terms of getting that positive feedback. Lynn's already covered the retirements. When you add it up, it's 282 years of service that will be leaving the college. If this is all rolled up to one person, they would have one heck of a longevity increment, and their STRS retirement plan would be fantastic. But anyway, I'm going to miss everybody who's leaving the college. I've had a personal relationship with each other, and the contributions they've made have helped make this college such a great college to be. So thank you very much. And the retirees, thank you very much. So real quickly, we've added nothing yet, here yet. Now we've added new certificated directors, Laura Ferris. This is since the fall in service. She's taken Susan Broderick's place, Director of Student Health Services, and Renata Funk, Director in Continuing Education Program. We've had a number of classified hires, and they got in probably just at the right time, because while we'll still be doing some hiring for vacant positions, given the magnitude of money we have to cut, we have to scrutinize each position really carefully, look for alternatives of getting the work done, and maybe in some cases saying maybe we can't do these things. It's just cutting $6 million out of our budget is huge, as Dean mentioned. So it won't be a hiring freeze, but it's going to be a whole level of creativity that we're going to be asking for. And for example, a month ago, I was arguing very strongly that we need to replace Keith McClellan's dean's position. Because of the way things are coming down, from the state, or not coming, I should say, Marilyn, and I she worked very carefully with the other deans and the faculty involved. And we decided to come up with a way to try not replacing that position. And if it doesn't work, the position's still in the budget, but right now it takes some pressure off the budget. Similarly, Joe Sullivan had a major key retirement in his area. He normally would have said the position has to be replaced. He found a way to try an alternative way to, again, reduce expenses. And that's what we'll be asking each of you when positions come available. And we won't be able to succeed all the time, but we're going to give it the old college try, no pun intended on that. The major accomplishments with this year, we've had many. And I have to tell you, almost every week, including even today, we've had multiple articles in the media, online, press, print, about achievements of our students, about faculty, about programs. It's just incredible how many good things are happening. And I have to just thank Joan Galvan. She does a great job getting us out in the media. But most importantly, it's what you're doing. So as good things are happening that we don't know about, send it to her. Send it to us. Let us know, because the media is picking up on it. And the more good news we can have about the college, the better. And we're getting plenty of good news because you're doing great things, and it's being acknowledged publicly in this. We got this fall, a large $4 million grant, largest in college's history. And what it is saying if students place one level below college level English or math or at college level English or math, and they've signed a contract to pay by our rules, they go full time, take what we talk, tell them to take, do the homework, do all the things that the contract calls for, they will complete their lower division transfer requirements. It will help them even with the transfer process, including looking for scholarships and financial aid in 2 years or less. And we got the grant for the science, technology, engineering, and math areas. So then we went to the Santa Barbara Foundation, and we got $75,000 grant to do it for the build the same kind of programs for the other degrees at the college. And we'll be looking at other funding sources, but we'll get going. Again, this is a whole collaborative effort, everything that all of us have been engaged in. So we've go back here a second. Thanks to the leadership of Laura Castro, Angela Warren, Transfer Center staff, we're almost doubling the number of guaranteed articulation agreements for our students with in-state privates, public institutions, out-of-state. It's pretty impressive, the list of schools they're working with. But we have to provide our students with many more options for transfer, given UC's limitations, how many students they can take, and CSU's is providing those options. Along those lines, we'll be announcing in a month or so, but it's already finished. CSU Channel Islands is already offering a bachelor's degree in business on our campus. Starting in fall, they'll offer a bachelor's degree in psychology. So I want to thank Stan Bernstein and the psychology department for cooperating. So they'll be offering the upper division courses and also giving our students favorable admissions requirements into that very competitive program. So, and when I met with CSU Channel Islands people last week, they've identified 6 or 7 more programs they want to begin developing. So we'll be in contact with those departments. But it's going to provide wonderful opportunities for our community, for our students to stay here and finish their baccalaureate degree. In some cases, there'll be baccalaureate to master's degrees programs as well. The successful implementation of Express to Transfer program, I'm going to skip ahead a few slides and show you the results. This is a program where students who placed in basic skills, 3 levels below, 2 levels below, 1 level below college level English, we said to them, if you're willing to sign a contract with us and do what we're telling you, good things will happen. And so what happened was we got phenomenal results. These are at-risk students, economically disadvantaged, educationally that they needed, they placed in remediation. They were hardly cherry-picked, quite the contrary. And what we found was that 79% of 95% of these students, and there was 258 who started this fall, less than 5% of these students dropped out, didn't complete the learning communities. The learning communities of 12 units or more. 95% completed. They didn't all succeed, but they completed the courses, 12 units or more. 79% completed one course with a grade of C or higher, and 69% overall, 66% in math, and 74% in English, completed 2 semesters of coursework in each of those disciplines in one semester with a passing grade. That's phenomenal. You don't even come close to that many students over a 3-year period even taking the next course in the basic skill sequence, and that's what they got. And Kathy Malloy has provided great leadership with faculty. Marilyn will acknowledge who's involved. But they have 3 pages of lessons learned. And so they accepted 220 plus students this spring, and then we'll double the size next fall. We'll keep on growing it. I expect the same kind of results with our Express to Transfer program. It's revisiting, reimagining curriculum, delivery of it, but also we're raising the bar for students. Raising the bar for students, and what the faculty said is the students have never worked this hard in their lives. The faculty said they never worked that hard, but everybody loved the outcome, and they would do it again, and many of them, and they are doing it again. The students are all returning because they didn't mind working hard. They just liked the structure and the help they were getting, and that's what we do. We raise the bar and expect more. They will rise to the occasion on that. I experienced that let me just come back. Mark, I just want to thank Mark again for the thankless work he's doing, but it paid off in everybody completing their CSS solos. So Mark has spent time in his presentation, but Mark doing that, just following up with everybody, just hounding everybody, it's there's more pleasant things he'd rather do. But the fact that he stayed with it, keeping us compliant with accreditation requirements, my hat's off to Mark. And thank you, Mark, for everything. It's probably easier for me to say because I don't have to write CSLOs in my area. And again, I can't believe, in my role now when I see everything's being accomplished on campus, and I just want to again thank everybody, individually and collectively, for what each of you do each day. It's just really gratifying, and that's why we're a great college to do that. What I was inspired by, a number of departments now are having competitions for students to compete, and I decided, what can I do to raise the bar of excellence? And so I just, made a contribution to the foundation, and I sponsored an art competition. I had the students come in my office. I said it's kind of art I like, and they competed in 3 areas, but they just did unbelievably good work. I have it framed in my office now. They got the prizes. But what amazed me is how these students responded and outdid themselves in terms of what they produced in a short period of time. And Dane Goodman was terrific. He was my agent in doing this, and we treated the students as if it was a professional environment. And the point is not that I did this. The point is the more departments can have competitions, look at ways of rewarding student excellence beyond what they normally do, the better it's for them. They'll rise to the occasion on that. The Aspen Institute, again, this is me and Jill Biden. I got my picture taken with head of the Department of Education, all the big shots, and this is the one that people picked up on. It was the one with Jill Biden. So I sent her a copy of this and I signed it for her. But I haven't received the response yet. But the one thing I want to say here is that I learned a lot from the other schools that were in the top 10. And and almost everything they're doing, we're doing. A lot of things we're doing, they're not doing. But some of the schools are doing with greater level of intensity than we are. And so I talked to Dean Nevins, and I'll be working with Dean and Marilyn about this spring having what I call a scholars forum, where I talk about that. Maybe I talk very little bit about Dateline 2020, what I think the way things are going, community colleges are going to look like in the year 2020. But it's really to have an intellectual, scholarly conversation. It's not a lecture about what other schools are doing, where education is going in the next couple of years, and just to engage people. We're an academic community, and let's bring everybody together who wants to engage in that kind of dialogue. I think it'd be refreshing to offset all the other cuts we have to make to keep us reminded of how much we have to learn from one another in doing that. Facilities project update. The good news is classes will start in the Drama and Music Building on Monday. So that's really quite an achievement. And I want to thank members of the music department, theater arts department, facility staff, Joe Sullivan and others. It's just been an incredibly long, difficult project, but the move-in time was very short, and everybody's doing what they have to do to get ready for classes on Monday. And it's just been a great effort. The Lrc Remodel, I won't read these. You can just see where everything is. It's probably a very aggressive timeline where getting the all this work done to get it done. The last item is that's the idea to expand, change the form, configuration of the West Campus snack bar, so we can serve a much greater variety of foods and have more seating and indoor seating for students in that facility. The implications of the governor's budget. When we first read it, the good news was no more cuts. And we go, great. But then you start reading. The bad news is fourth year without a COLA for the college. But then he says, if the tax increases are not approved, we're going to take out of your budget City College. This is not for the system, this is us. $3.5 million, but you won't know that until November 6th, until after the vote. And we'll take that money out in January 1st. So I'm not sure if the tax measure will be passed or not. I don't know if the legislature will have the stomach to cut education, K through universities, more. But as Dean said, it's out on the horizon, and that's the uncertainty we have to plan for, going forward. The good news is there is light at the end of the tunnel. What the Department of Finance has predicted, and Governor Brown reinforced, is after next year, they actually project there'll be increases in K through 14 funding, 3 to 4% for each of the next couple of years going forward. Things can change, but at least this year, next year, I think is the worst. And then there's light at the end of the tunnel. And it's always nice to know that there's hope out there in terms of some money coming back to us, which is good news. There's a lot of risks in that budget, the governor's budget I'm talking about. We don't, tax measures, it's political, it's uncertain. The legislative office analyst says that money, the governor says it's going to yield $6.9 billion. They say no, about 4.8. So where's the discrepancy of money going to come from? If we lose get that workload reduction mid-year, we have to respond quickly. Plus, there's budget shortfalls this year. We already know at the state level. So what happens when they finally settle up all the property tax and this tax and that revenue thing in September or October of next year? They said, oh yeah, by the way, that extra money, that money we're going to pay you last year, instead of giving you $1 on a dollar, we're giving you 96 cents on a dollar. But you find out after you spent the money. So that gets rolled forward. So that's the uncertainty that we deal with all the time on this. Student fee shortfall, what happens is because when they raised the fees, more students applied for and got Board of Governors grants. Exceeds what was budgeted at the state level. So that money comes out of our hide, community colleges in the end. So they'll do that as one of those so-called mid-year adjustments that we'll find out next October. It's mid-year, but the wrong year, that you find out, and so forth. I just talked about the property tax roll. Also, what the governor's calling for is an increase in the grade point average to qualify for Cal grants from a 2.4 to 2.75. If that happens, about 30,000 students in California higher education would no longer be eligible. Bulk, a large portion of those would be, community colleges. We'll have to analyze how that would affect us if that is passed by the legislature on that. Okay, I'm going to go very quickly. I want to give Marilyn some time. The main thing here about the Board of Governors approved the Student Success Task Force recommendations. There's a lot of impacts, but the most immediate one is they're saying you got to change community colleges, the prioritization, how you're funding courses. At the lowest priority, and we're going to be watching you, and if you don't do it, we're going to legislate it, is you need to prioritize the courses that lead to degrees, certificates, jobs, and transfer. Anything that's considered life enrichment, lifelong learning, we're telling you right now that goes to the low, make those fee-based, stop offering those. You got to help the students who are pursuing those other goals. They come first. So for us, we have a very large continuing education program. So what we'll be doing is converting in an orderly manner over the next couple of years, non-credit, non-enhanced to fee-based, self-supporting. In doing that, you can see these other recommendations. The last one is they're going to create a scorecard, and so these outcome measures, they're going to come up with very specific outcome measures, and we'll all be held accountable. A real quick story: my older brother lives in Washington. His daughter applied for college, and so he sends me an email. Said, "Jack, I got this information from when we were filling out the FAFSA form that all the graduation rates for all the schools that she's applying for, and look at the discrepancies." And so he goes, she's changed her mind as to where she's going to go, apply based on the 3-year graduation rates and the first to second year return rates. And so I'll tell you what, people are paying attention to those outcome measures, and that's why it's really critical that we continue to make the progress we're making, with the various programs we're doing. We established the somewhere here. Anyway, Dean explained that. We established a Center for Lifelong Learning, so it's a continuing education task force to help us move in an orderly way, courses from non-credit to fee-based in doing that. Let me just look at what Dean hasn't covered yet. Dean covered this real quickly on the loss of FTS. Marilyn might explain more information on that. But the big implication for credit is now we won't be cutting credit classes, and we'll have to grow to make up the loss of non-credit as we convert. But we're going to do it respecting all the work that you did, that Dean talked about, in terms of course prioritization. So that's how we're going to look at how we restore or reposition TLUs in doing that. The big challenge we're going to have is reducing $6 million out of our budget by 14. We're each vice president and myself, we're each given budget targets that we have to cut 8.7% out of our budgets by 13-14. You'll be seeing these work reduction worksheets. And again, what Dean talked about and Mark, we have to do it in a way that least adversely affects students. And we'll be coming back, EC and CPC with a number of ideas on how to do this. But it's going to be tough to do this. Major areas of focus coming for the spring, I listed them in doing this. The one thing, the fourth bullet down, we're going to be launching the second annual campaign for student success that raises money for tutoring, book grants, tuition waivers for our students to allow them to go to school full-time in our programs. And this time, Foundation will be asking faculty to try to help, participate in this campaign, and we'll tell you how to do it. But they have a goal of $750,000, but I think they'll exceed it this year. It goes direct support to our students that you have. These are some of the other things we'll focus on this year. We'll be starting a career technology education task force. So I want to make sure we focus on our career tech programs and some new areas, new initiatives we'll be discussing with them on that. And the biggest challenge is the last bullet. But I'm sure we can achieve it in a way that's least disruptive, but it'll require all our creative thinking and cooperation to achieve it. So in sum, just want to thank everybody for everything everybody does to make us the best college in California. We're in the 10 best in the nation. And what they told me when I was back in the Aspen Institute, for the awards, and what they said actually in an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education, that their measures, outcome measures they used ultimately to say who was the winner for that award were too narrow. And they learned that after visiting Santa Barbara City College. They realized that we were doing so much more than we captured in those narrow measures, and that in the future they're going to expand the measures they look at. But I was called aside to let me know that how much influence what we're doing here has on their thinking going forward. But I left that meeting saying, you know what, even though we're at a disadvantage in California, everything on those different outcome measures, that I want to go back and compete for that award in a couple of years, and we'll have the kinds of rates that some of these other schools are getting.